That's a gay-ass podcast.
What? That's a gay-ass podcast. A what? A really, really, really gay podcast that we call That's a Gay-Ass Podcast.
That's a gay-ass name for a gay-ass podcast.
Welcome back to That's a Gay-Ass Podcast, the podcast that asks, whose fault is it that you're gay? It is me, Eric Williams, and this week we have the icon, the legend herself, Margaret Cho. We talk gay cruises, her iconic Sex and the City episode, and what's our current favorite kink of the day. But before we get to Margaret, here is our wonderful producer, Nathanael, with today's 3 gay tips.
Hi, my name's Nathanael. Some of you may know me as the producer of this very podcast, and others of you may know me from my big chunky ass online. So, here are 3 gay tips for bubble butt care.
3 gay tips! Woo!
Number 1, exfoliate and moisturize. Just like our beautiful lawns, every 7 to 10 days we should be exfoliating and following up with a beautiful silky layer of moisturizer to lock in that goodness. Number 2, get a bidet. If you got number 2 on your hands, you wouldn't just wipe it off. You'd want to wash it off. Invest in yourself and get a bidet. Number 3, love yourself. Butts go through a lot of life. They get stretch marks, they get bruises, they get discolorations. They have all sorts of things going on. And if you can't love them with all their flaws, then you don't deserve them. So love yourself and others. Shake your ass. And those are your 3 gay tips on bubble butt care. Back to you, Eric.
Thanks, Nathanael. And remember, if you're not subscribed to YouTube, you're missing out on that juicy big old booty, which was filmed in a field. Go watch it. But now, you know Margaret from her award-winning comedy specials, her extensive TV and film roles, and from being a low-down, motherfucking, foul-mouthed, queer-ass bitch. This is Margaret Cho. Margaret Cho is on That's a Gay-Ass Podcast. Her story is being made in this very moment. Margaret Cho, the last time I saw you was at That's a Gay-Ass live show back in May, and I feel like this is a gorgeous reunion.
I love it. That was an amazing show. And then I got to do a song. I got to do that
true.
opening number.
Yes, you did. We did a little bit of
dancing.
A rapping moment from Margaret Cho herself. Mm-hmm. And then as the listeners might remember, you represented in the character actress competition Kathy Bates. And you did remind the girlies, what was your lip sync from?
It was from Misery. So this was the iconic scene from Misery where James Caan kills Misery and she can't believe it. So it's very intense.
Oh, yeah. And Dee, Liv, Heard. I assume I know the answer to this, but would you say that That's a Gay-Ass live show was sort of like the peak of the career you've lived and led?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so much to say, and it was really incredible. And I had the best time. It was just really incredible.
Margaret Cho, no one yes ands better than you. And I just have to say, it is such an honor to have you here. Let me just say, the lives that you have lived, 3 billion TV shows, specials, interviews, bitsies, moments. And of course, Gay-Ass Live Show for me is meant a lot. But I think that one of the roles that I would love to immediately confront you with is a role that kind of defined my theater faggotry, which is the very important role of the fashion show producer in the episode of Sex and the City entitled The Real Me, airing on June 3rd, 2001. Margaret Cho, Carrie was fashion roadkill. Was that tough to witness?
That was so tough to witness. And that was an incredible episode. You know, that person is an actual real person. Like, she actually runs all of the fashion shows in New York, and we look very similar. And that's her personality. So, and she was there, kind of running the show within the show. And so it's based on a real life person. It's a wonderful Asian American woman who is just like that, very crass, very crude, and you know, also is under a lot of pressure all the time during Fashion Week, any fashion show. So she was really cool.
I feel like in the entertainment, theater, live events world, like musicals are high stakes, but I feel like fashion show must be... Why aren't there more documentaries about fashion show, behind the scenes, true crime? That's what I want to know.
Oh, no, true crime. Everybody's so busy all the time. And that show, when they were doing the fashion show, it was real models. It was real. I mean, everybody behind the scenes too. They were acting in the episode, but they were also doing a fashion show. So it was really very literal. And so I was sharing my dressing room with Kevin Aquan, and he came in with huge bags full of these products. He just started his product line, and he was launching it. So he gave me these giant, like, grocery store shopping bags filled with product and all the stuff. And, it was just wonderful to meet him, very shortly after he passed away, which was really shocking. But I was really grateful that I got to meet him. He had signed a bunch of his books and put those in the bags. And so I have all of those. And
it's kind of
what
crazy.
An incredible guy.
An incredible experience too, to not only talking about him, but also talking about how you're in the actual fashion world of New York City that is super big names, let alone a cameo from Heidi Klum in the episode.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are told this. There are certain parts of Sex and the City that maybe the roles weren't as big, or they were guest stars, but they created such a crazy impression. I'm thinking of you as the producer of, obviously, where Carrie is run over by Heidi Klum. And then I'm thinking of Kristen Johnston, I'm so bored I could die, when she falls out the window. These are all kind of gay canon characters, and it just tracks that Margaret Cho is on that list. Honey, you're gay.
Yeah, I love
icon.
Icon. I love the syllables that you decide to put the emphasis on.
Do you know what's devastating, Margaret? Is I don't know that I'm doing it. I think it's an illness, and I'm not even you saying that is so. I love to hear it, but I'm also I did.
It's you're gonna decide how this word is pronounced. You take the accents that they take in the Oxford Dictionary, you lift them, and then you decide to put them where they belong in your syntax.
Listen,
I love it.
Listen, you can't have syntax with a little bit of sin. And who isn't mind breaking the rules of pronunciation? What I also want to be able to pronounce, Margaret Cho, is if you're on a gay ass podcast, you've talked a lot about your own gay-assery, social identité. There was even a quote for the Today Show where they interviewed you, and basically you said, well, you identified as bi, but bi gender, so I don't like that because I think that's wrong. But I do love the 70s sound of bisexual. It sounds very gay chic. Margaret, bisexual is gay chic, but on this here day, what is your identité? How do you identify in the LGBTQ sphere?
Well, the identité I love also. But I think what it is that bisexual now to me means attracted to my own gender and another gender. So another gender is open. So it can be any gender. And so I think that's appropriate. So the way that I've sort of made it fit in my mind is that me and then plus everybody else. And that can be in different forms of whatever their gender expression is. And I think that's ideal. I do lead into masculinity. So I really love female masculinity. I love a mask. I love male masculinity. I'm crazy about masculinity. And that's what I'm most attracted to. So, and that can come in any form, and that can come in any gender. So
well said. If we paint a picture of the masculinity that really wets your whistle, floods your basement, are you what element, if we're thinking of a masculine element of a person, what is something that either can be a physical or spiritual energy that really soaks you? I think it's a strong jawline and a strong point of view, and this is how we're going to do it. Somebody who takes charge. I'm real top. Oh, I like a top. Yeah. I like somebody who's I'm going to take charge, and I'm not going to be tentative about anything. You want to be straightforward, and and at times I can embody that. I find I am pretty butch when I need to be, and that's what I like about myself. But I'm also really turned on when somebody is naturally that. I completely identify with that feeling, because I think in a way there's a fun, when you get to call the shots, there's something fun about that. But then all of a sudden when you're sort of shoved onto a bed and then someone tells you where to put your mouth, you say, I'll take a note. Yeah.
Other- it's just like so refreshing, because having to be somebody that's so in charge in life, to be able to have somebody else hold the reins is very erotic and really refreshing and exciting and fun. So for me, I think that's also like really common for people in power. And, in the kink communities, like the richer the man is, the more he wants to get peed on.
Right.
The more power they wield in the world, the more they want to be outside, like submissive outside of that power, pulled away from their power.
No, that makes sense. I also, let's manifest that one day I get to have enough money to want to get shit on. I'm kidding. I don't need. We don't need to manifest shit, but like, I want to be able to pay my bills and maybe have more than a finger in my ass at one point. A girl can dream.
You can have anything, and it is really those people who are very powerful in finance and like in business. They always comes down to peeing. They also want to be peed on, like in their face, in their mouth, in their eyes, anything.
It's very sort of like
really
base.
Just want to get peed on.
It's very like to our roots. Or there's if I may reference a documentary about chimpanzees that the Gay Ass podcast producer Nathanael did put me onto. Chimp Crazy, I believe it's called.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Holy shit! It takes me back to sort of like our most basic animal instincts of maybe these businessmen just want to go back to the roots of just like pee is a flowing and there's not the urinal is their mouth.
Yeah, well, they want to be dominated.
Right.
And they want to be, when you pee on something, you own it. Like that's how in the animal kingdom, that's how they recognize what's theirs. I'm going to pee on it and therefore it's mine.
Right.
When you pee on a man, then they're yours. Or you pee on anything, that's automatically yours.
Well, you know what's mine right now is the ability to ask you a question, Margaret Cho, that I must ask all Gay Ass podcast guests. And we've talked a bit about your identité, but let's get into the real question, which is, Margaret Cho, whose fault is it that you're queer? Who do we blame, babe?
Probably Jane Hathaway on Beverly Hillbillies. Jethro. She was really a funny lesbian. I think any kind of a mannish woman. I love a mannish woman.
Yeah.
Like in West Side Story, the old one, there's the young girl who wants to be the Jets.
Of course.
So she's like hiding out. She's trying to be in the Jets. Any kind of a tomboy. I'm like a young Jodie Foster, pretty much in anything. Christy McNichol. Like I just love like a tomboy life.
These are all
I'm so into that.
Really great references. Did you find, weren't there like children's books as a younger person that had a very butch women? Like it's not Judy Blume, but I'm fiction. Like I'd love to Pippi Longstocking because she like could like drive a boat. To me,
yes,
there's like something about a strong woman, and especially as a young person, I'm sure you were looking at these people like, do you think a part of you was like, I want to be that butch woman?
Yeah, you want to be that, and you also want to be taken care of by that butch woman. And so Pippi Longstocking is also very European. There's something very like mysterious and exotic, and also kind of like a carryover from a fairy tale because of her hair. There was like Ramona the Brave, which is like an American version of, I think, sort of that like tomboy hero. But I do love those icons, those like tomboy icons.
Well, it's also interesting to me when we think about your upbringing. You have this amazing relationship, of course, to growing up with your parents, but especially what you do with your mom and your work is just absolutely genius. It's funny, like I am not an Asian woman, and yet I feel like I have a similar big personality mother that really sort of transcends any cultural differences. And you talk about how you were raised not only by your parents, which is have a very strict Korean family, but also they purchased a gay bookstore a la very similar to Circus of Books. And so it's like you come from these different worlds that have come together in such interesting ways.
Yes, I think, and this was in the 70s. So this was like right at the very pinnacle of gay chic. And you had millions of young men coming to San Francisco and coming out in the street and putting on a cowboy hat or a leather cap. And that's their new life. And, you know, it was really incredible to see that. But then at the same time, you know, you had the devastation of Harvey Milk's assassination, and then the complete decimation of AIDS, how AIDS completely just destroyed a community like you couldn't. It was like atomic bomb. You know, it was you couldn't even capture it really in film or any kind of historical record because it was so devastating, and the people that were there to record it were also dying. Oh, you know, so just didn't know.
It's just it's a very, I can say this from a place of privilege that it's like I can't imagine what that was like, because I think I'm going to call the younger version of me out, which is that I remember I was early 20s and I was hanging out with these gay men. It was a couple, one of the first gay couples that like really sort of was like treating me as an equal and wanted to, you know, hang out. And I hung out with this couple just over dinner. And I remember that something about the AIDS crisis came up in a reference that I was trying to add to the conversation, and I realized I couldn't say. I tried to even. I wasn't making light of it. I wasn't making fun of it. But I think I made some sort of comment that was like trying to be more of like a witty, putting a hat on it. And the reaction was like, "Well, that's not what, you know, that was a very real thing for them." And in that moment, I realized like I am not treating at all that time or that topic with the sensitivity that it deserves when I'm speaking with people who lived through it. And now I can say, you know, all these years later, I can understand much more, but it's still something that, like you're saying, it was impossible to actually capture because of the day-to-day difference I'm sure you were living in, the people, losing the people around you.
Yeah, but also that's how they cope with it, is through humor. So it's through that's the way that we cope with trauma as gay people. We laugh at it because that's the only way to survive. So in a sense, the way that you were talking about it is actually totally appropriate. Also,
I was also probably like so deeply insecure in my own gayness that I probably was just freaking out on my own behalf that like I've now done something. I've ruined it all because I just felt so ill-equipped. But I think like, it's nice to hear you say that now. I mean, that's helpful. Yeah.
Because humor is something that I think in the queer community, we needed as a survival mechanism, you know, and we do it so that we don't get killed. Like, I think that's like basically like, if we're funny, we don't die. And that's that's the tea. But then like I have a painting in my house where it's about that period, and the painting is it's like a skeleton. There's like a funeral going on of that, but its base is my friends were going to funerals so much that it was getting boring. So they started to do acid during the funerals, and it's like the crazy like funeral, and then the skeleton is in the ground, but then there's all these like insane balloons and like LSD hallucinations going around this very sad funeral scene, and it's just about like, how do we even survive this? It's with hilarity. It's with camp. It's with chaos. And that's how we came back as a community. You know, we could have just disappeared into extinction, but the way that we came back was through this intense ability to laugh. Yes. And that's how we survive.
You know, you're so spot on. It's I think part of the reason why I look up to your work and I kind of aspire to do some of the things you do, which is like take some of the difficult parts of your past and obviously make yourself and us laugh. I mean, one of the examples is you in the show All American Girl, obviously a history-making sitcom. But what's so amazing to me about it is that the actual storyline of the show can be considered like deep issues of you trying to combine, like you're trying to please your Korean parents while also feeling like you're assimilating to American culture. And like when you think about that, it's like, okay, it's something that is a big topic, but then it's just like a truly funny, not only great sitcom, but also they've cast BD Wong as your older brother. They have cast Judy Gold as your friend Gloria Schechter. I mean,
I love Judy. I love BD.
It's so, when you look back on that, like, what's the prevailing feeling that comes up? I look at it, of course, as like history, and there's all these amazing queer people in it. But what's when you look back on it, what do you feel?
Thank you. I'm so glad. But I look back and I just see my lifelong friends. It was an opportunity to make lifelong friends, with BD, with Judy, but also, what's so great too is that a whole generation of Asian American comedians saw that and realized that it was possible that they could do television, that they could be seen. So I think that's really, really incredible. So I look back on it with a lot of warmth and real gratitude. Like, it's really wonderful that people got to see themselves. And now we have so many Asian American comedians and actors and entertainers, and they're all incredibly come to me with lots of respect, but also excitement, because they're like, oh, I saw you, and it made me feel like it was possible to be me. And I'm like, that's incredible.
It is. Well, and it's also incredible to see how then your paths with those people cross. I mean, I remember in an interview you said how Ken Jeong has talked about how he was inspired by you. And then you were in one of his shows. I know you've worked with him at least a couple times. Bowen Yang, of course.
Yeah, I love.
Huge fan of Bowen. He's been on the pod. He's done the live show as well. And he just, when the two of you were in Fire Island, I mean, I don't even have a good question about that film, just to be like, well, I know you love Fire Island outside of the film.
Yeah.
But what was your first year in Fire Island?
My first year was actually late. It was in 2008. Although I'm a Provincetown lady, so I've been going to Provincetown pretty much every year since 1986. So I don't know why there was such a lag in going to Fire Island, but then you sort of pick your places, and then there's only one summer a year, and so you go like, and I now I go to both, although I haven't been since the filming of Fire Island, but I love the place. I love the fact that we as gay people have a place to go. That's just so amazing. And then we see all our friends, and it's like a very meaningful place, and we've all been going for generations. So, and the lore of Fire Island, like there was a man named Jack who passed away a couple of years ago, but he was rumored to have given the best blowjobs on the island, and everybody agreed. And it didn't matter what age, if you were in your 20s or if you were in your 80s, everybody said, "Oh yeah, Jack gave the best blow," because Jack could remove his teeth. And so, and I think he had his teeth removed for like a long time. I think that it was he just took them all out and would go to town. And he also had the best weed in the years before it was legal.
Rest in peace. Can we just everybody listening and watching, pour one out? Can you say his full name again? Can we give some respect?
I don't know his last name, but his name was Jack. And he always wore a leather vest without a shirt, and he was probably in his late 70s when he passed away. Given those gummy blowjobs in the sky, I hope he's sucking God off right now, because God deserves. He probably is. If anybody deserves it, God really deserves it. And, God wanted him for himself. Exactly. God said, you're 78. That's enough blowjays on the earth. Time to come to the pie in the sky and give me a deep dish sloppy J.
Listen, if you love That's a Gay-Ass Podcast, there's like a 94% chance you love The Golden Girls. I know that I do, and I'm so excited to tell you about the Golden Girls Deep Dive Podcast. It's a new podcast that you will absolutely j'adore. It's not only a recap podcast that goes into like your favorite episodes of The Golden Girls, there is a twist involving true crime. I'm not joking. They have like a full-time researcher that looks into trivia, behind the scenes stuff, and they dive deep. I don't know if you remember in the pilot episode, there's Coco, the gay chef. Like, where did he go? You will get that answer with this wackadoo true crimey ending on the Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast. There was also all that crazy stuff about B. Arthur and Betty White hating each other. They dive into that. They also dive into like the 30 years of unpaid community theater acting gigs that Estelle Getty did before booking Sophia. The Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast, they de-live her. And finally, the hosts are killing it. Patrick Hines has been in the game for years. He is so funny. He hosts True Crime Obsessed, The GOAT. He also hosts it with Jennifer Samard. Y'all, Broadway legend. Are you not gagged? Go listen to the Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast. They already have hundreds of 5-star reviews. They've topped the charts, and you deserve. Grab that cheesecake, head to the lanai, and go follow the Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast wherever you listen.
Margaret, the problem with you is that I feel so comfy with you in a way that if I'm speaking to many icons, I would be shitting myself. But I was going to ask you, don't answer this. I was going to ask you what sexual move you would be known for or would be like to be known for. But I think that we'll just... I don't think that's a question that I'm going to ask you, but I want...
Well, I bring enthusiasm. Like, that's what I bring to the sexual table is I'm up for it all. And I'm up for... I really like... I want to do what makes you get, like, to get to that thing that people really get off on. Like, I want to get there and I want to work with that. Like, so I want every experience to be the greatest. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way because people are not that communicative, and they want you to dig and find out. And I ask such pointed questions that a lot of people get kind of nervous about it, But
so my love language is direct, like words of affirmation, direct communication. I agree with you. Yeah. It's not a lot. It's not an every person thing, but that's also, did you learn that through therapy or have you always been a direct dreidel?
I think I learned that from going to a lot of BDSM workshops and working. I worked at a BDSM company early in the 90s, late in the 80s. And I used to go to a lot of play parties. And then, I would talk to a lot of people who were just, experts in sexuality. And, I'm still friends with all those people today. And they just gave me a lot of advice, and you can use that stuff in BDSM. BDSM is necessary because you have to communicate a lot about what's happening, but you can take that into the vanilla world and beyond, and really, because it's really about getting to know and having a blueprint of the sexuality that somebody else has so that you can work with that and build that castle.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a true testament to the directness that you need in those settings, that you can translate those skills in other parts of your life. It's also interesting to me that you have such a openness about sex, because it's the things that are annoying that people are cagey about are money and sex to me. It's like it's all a part of our experience. But you had a show on TLC with, if we can shout out Broadway girlina Marissa Jarrett Winokur, Tracy Turnblad, if you're nasty.
Yes.
And you were the sex expert on this show, and there was, I don't know if you remember this, you were interviewed by this I think it was a news crew in New York, and the male anchor was like very nervous to talk about sex, and you gave such simple, direct, and you weren't sensationalizing any of it. You were talking about polyamory, and he was like, well, shouldn't there be an issue with jealousy? And you're like, of course, but that's where communication comes in. And the same thing with monogamy, there's also very much that jealousy as well. But it's I just love that you've always been so open. But has your take on sex changed at all as you've gotten older? Are you past your BDSM past? What's the current flavor?
I'm open to it all, but it's really strange how, as I get older, the less interest I have in it altogether. Like, even in masturbation, whatever it is, like sexual anything is really like your drive really goes down. And now it's been kind of peaking and coming valleys because I'm on hormone replacement therapy, which is helping a lot. But it's quite interesting how things that you know used to be like, oh, so fascinating. I'm like, really, like I just sort of turned off to it. And like I am going to a Folsom Street Fair, and I had like actually did the first virtual version of it, and I got to see all of these new kinks. And usually I'm so amped to try it, but I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even try anything. Like there's all this like new duct tape play, and there's like all this new like a cactus paint. Like, it's like these vegetarians now, these vegans are now, instead of using leather, they're using like cactus as like pain tools, which I think is so genius. It's like cruelty-free cruelty. And I just love it. So, but I haven't tried anything because it's just, I don't know. Like, it's so weird because my body's changing.
Yeah.
But that's menopause. So, you know, I think maybe if I'm on the other side of that, it may feel different, but it's also very interesting to kind of not be this interested in sex. So maybe there's something deeper. Maybe there's something else is coming, a different kind of connection.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting.
That is interesting. And I also want to give out a shout out to the vegan kinksters. And
Yes.
if at any point you need a brainstorming session, I'd love to come up with other non-animal things that can spike your tits. I'm like looking around the room. Is there anything in here they could use? I'll let you vegan kinksters know. But I also just want to say your comedy and sort of your personage, if you will, has such a kinship to gay men specifically. And part of it, I think, of course, is your ability to make things funny from trauma, but also how you are just so open to talking about your relationship. I mean, you talked about your album Assassin, that you went on a gay cruise. And I myself have never been on a gay cruise, but I aspire to.
You have to. Oh, I hope you do. I hope you do a live podcast on your cruise. That would be really great. I think you would have a really good time.
I would.
It is an older crowd,
Great.
a little bit.
Great.
But they are so wonderful, and it's a lot of fun. And then you're always going to have a fabulous gay icon, somebody like Carrie Fisher, although she's not with us anymore. She was a big believer in all those gay cruises.
I did
you'll
not
have somebody
know that.
Fabulous.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you'll have somebody fabulous on the boat, like Liza Minnelli or Debbie Reynolds or somebody, you know, like when she was alive, she would do them. And then you have all of the fun parties and costume parties and like a white party. There's always like fun nighttime events, and it's really, I think you would have a good time.
No, I know I would, especially when you say older man. You had me at older men.
Yeah.
It's also the thing about those icons on those ships, like I cannot imagine eating a giant meal on a cruise, being blissed out from a chocolate pudding bar, and then going into a theater and Debbie Reynolds popping out on stage.
Wouldn't that be incredible? Or like, you know, it would be something like, you know, some wonderful old like Hollywood diva telling stories, or, you know, something like that. They always do the good booking, and then like other gay comics and music, lots of cabaret. There's always, on those cruises, there's always one queen with terrible breath. You know what I mean? When there's like an old queen, there's always one old queen who's hilarious and a lot of fun, but you can't hang out with them because they have the worst breath. There's something about old gay breath, and I'm not sure what it is, but it is a man of a certain age.
I shudder to think the reason for the awful breath I will grow into. I wonder, do you think it's poppers? Do you think it is glittery denture glue? I mean, what are we doing wrong?
I'm not sure what it is. It always smells like mothballs. So it could be, I don't know, maybe they're eating mothballs. I don't know what it is, but it's very interesting, like how there is always that one queen, and they're always hilarious.
Yeah, of course. Well, also, fuck the true crime about fashion shows backstage. I'm going straight to Palm Springs to get into the bottom of this halitosis. Halahomatosis, bitch.
Oh, it's homotosis. It's
Homohalitosis.
It's so upsetting, but there's always that one queen. So either on dry land like Palm Springs or on the water, it's just something about it. But We'll have to decide. I feel like it's maybe it just neglect.
Okay.
I don't know, or vaping or smoking. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
it
not
could just
always
be
related
given
to that.
up. It could be. We've tried. We had to work so hard for so long, and at a certain point, you're like, ugh, brushing teeth.
You just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to the bottom of it. But there's another origin story that I didn't get a chance to ask you when I saw you in May, which is your beautiful angel dog, Luchia.
Oh, she's right here. She's like
right where she belongs, next to mommy.
She's the best girl, yes.
Luchia, for anyone watching on YouTube, I'm so grateful that we get to have this experience of any moment to see Luchia. She really is a stunner. Can you give us the origin story of how she found her way to you?
So she comes from the Michelson's Found Animals rescue. They do like rescues out of the shelters in LA. And so my friend was working in their facility, and Luchia came in with her mom and her 3 litter mates. And, she's like, oh, this is a really cute dog. You should have a look. And so then I went in, I met her and her sister. They were twins, but her sister had black nose and black eyes. Luchia has a pink nose and brown eyes. And Luchia, they put her in my arms, and she fell asleep in the crook of my elbow. And she just put her snout in there and fell asleep. And so then I just took her, and she was about the size of a microwavable burrito, like a tiny, like a dinner roll.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's about 5 pounds now, but she really goes everywhere, and she loves men. Oh,
I remember having a nice little cuddle sesh, and she just really, I'm having a moment where I have a dog that I like. I knew I would fall in love with having my own dog, but it's like, it really is unlike anything in the world. And I don't know, there was a whole big thing on Twitter recently about like when people have children and how their feelings might change towards their pets. And I asked one of my good Judies if she felt different about her cat once her baby was born. And she said, not really. But I just feel like the way I feel about my dog and the way you feel about Luchia, like these are our children. I don't see any other answer.
They are our children. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's a space in your heart to have a place for them, and also animals and children. Of course, there's enough space in our heart for all of our children, whether they are biological children or they're little dogs or little cats or whatever.
Totally. Well, Luchia's full name is Luchia Katerina, yes? Yes,
Luchia Katerina. And she is a really good girl. She's a little agitated because there's somebody in the house, but she's doing good. She only barked a couple of times.
No, she's an angel. In addition to our love of pets, you are also famously a lover of marijuana. Is that still the case?
Well, I'm sober now, but I have had my own strain. I have the house drink that when you used to come to my house was called the Green Fairy, and it was green tea mixed with absinthe with a topping of THC butter.
Oh,
so it was
God.
And people would just fall asleep. It was like this concoction. It was like I was like a witch. Like people would come over and pass out, and like I was the only one who would be awake, and I would wear these like long robes, and I had like stained glass of like cannabis leaves. I mean, it's just really, it's truly ridiculous. But I had all this glassware, and like I would do dabs, and I just smoked so much weed that I just wasn't getting high anymore.
Oh.
But I am sober now. I'm sober for a long time, but it's funny. Like I love the idea of cannabis, but I don't partake anymore. But I have done so much that I think I will always be a stoner.
But it doesn't feel different. You were just such a connoisseur.
But the first, in the 90s, I was given a brownie by Brownie Mary, Brownie Mary was an incredible gay activist. She was an older lady, and she was in the 80s and 90s baking cannabis brownies for gay men who were dying of AIDS and hospice, because she discovered that was one thing that would bring their appetite back. So she was baking these cannabis goodies for them and bringing them to hospices, and she was getting arrested every other day. And she was such an important revolutionary for, cannabis, the lifting of prohibition of cannabis, but also care for people with AIDS in a rational way that made sense for them, regardless of whether it was against the law or not. So, Brownie Mary was incredible, but she gave me a pop brownie in the 90s. I'm still high. I'm still high.
And still hungry. I'm
still like starving. But she was such an incredible person. I was really an honor to meet her, like a saint, literally a saint walking on the earth.
No, it's to give gay men that during that period it's you can't even describe that. But also, I love weed, and I'm so glad that this queen was able to spread the THC.
The joy.
The joy of it. Because you are on this gay ass podcast, Margaret Cho, I do want to also bring us the joy of asking the next famous podcast question, which is, if the world was ending, you could only save one character actress. Who would you save?
Actress. Endowed. You know it's Ann Dowd.
I do know.
You know it's Ann Dowd. Why don't you even ask? No, Ann Dowd, who is so versatile. I love her as Aunt Lydia. I love her, in everything. In Hereditary, she's really amazing. But she just sexy. I find her really sexy. See, like Aunt Lydia is like the peak masculinity. Like that's the kind of top I'm talking about. Only a woman can be a man like that.
Ann Dowd could really throw you around.
I love Ann Dowd, and I find her so surprising. All different kinds of the many faces. So if we only had, because the resource is so important. Character actresses are just so precious.
Thank you.
If we only had the ability to have one, I think it should be.
Well, I'm looking at her IMDb right now because I'm like, she is, thank God, working very consistently. But do you want to manifest, like, what do we want Ann Dowd to have, sort of like a vehicle that is her as a titular character? Do we prefer her in the roles that she has been doing? Like, what do we want for Ann?
I would love her to be front and center.
Yeah.
That we're just only looking at Ann. If that maybe having Martha Kelly as her sister, or something like where it's a two-hander with Martha Kelly and Ann Dowd, because I think they have a sort of a familial resemblance. There's something about them physically that
they do. Well, remember,
makes sense.
I'm ashamed to say this, but Martha Kelly, for me, I was not as familiar with her work until all of a sudden I was watching Euphoria, and I was like, wait a minute, she is in everything, a lot. And you're casting directress Margaret Cho is spot on. Martha Kelly and Ann Dowd, sister, Tia and Tamara part 2. Also,
something like that. Yeah, I agree.
Also, Ann Dowd's IMDb, you're not lying when you say she can do anything. I'm looking at her list. I kind of forgot. She had done At Home with Amy Sedaris, so Go Off Comedy Queen, Search Party, again, Dark Comedy Queen, and then all the way to American Dad, okay, Animation Girlina, Terminator Zero, random, but go off, The Exorcist Believer, full circle head tilt. It's just to be a character actress who can do every single category of film and TV, that is like, you need no further proof that you are a versatile character actress queen.
That's exactly it. She's versatile, but also to the point of like, always the same also, which is like, there's something about her that she's always the same, but she's always different. Like it's always like, or she's always the same. It's the world around her that's different. So, you see her in different things, but she's like every woman, which I think is so exciting.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love her. I just want to see her in everything.
Do you know
and I would
that
like to see her front and center.
Oh, of course. And you know what that reminds me of is how Meryl Streep sort of has a similar, like, you can kind of feel the Merylness, but the world around her changes. And then if we can go full circle, have you seen that clip of Debbie Reynolds doing her Meryl Streep impersonation?
Oh, I haven't, but that sounds great.
I'm gonna send it to you. It is so funny. She's on, I think it's Larry King, and Debbie Reynolds is doing an impersonation of just Meryl Streep's. Like, it's so spot on, and it's like, again, it's just like Anne, you can kind of see a lot of the similarities, but also you believe the world she's in because they're just that good.
Yeah, I love it.
Now, we've talked so much about your past work, about these character actresses, but I want to get into sort of like gay comedy at large. I want to ask you, as such a seasoned comedian, why do you think sometimes within the gay community there can be people who don't accept or like or support, quote, gay comedy, sort of like gay on gay criticism, hate? What do you think that comes from?
I think it's really interesting. Like, I think it's just hard. Like, there is so much when we look at gay entertainment that's kind of for us. Like, we like when I'm looking at sort of the gay audience, they really love straight women. They love drag queens. They love the ugly. They love the misfits. They love the sort of the grotesque. But they have a hard time really getting into a man that's handsome, who's gay. They have a hard time. Like, they don't like straight men at all. Like, forget they don't exist really. They don't matter.
Yeah.
But they really have a hard time with like a young gay man who's handsome.
Yeah, no, you're
really hard. You have to be so genius to even crack a smile from like an all gay audience. Like, they just have so much wrapped up in this idea of, I don't want to laugh at myself. And it's also, well, what does he have to work? What does he have to teach me? What's he going to tell me that I don't already know? There's a distrust of self that's very, it's interesting. Like, I wonder what that is, because they always, I mean, and I think they're starting to come on board with gay women or queer women or non-binary women or anybody that is like other, they can get with, but their own, they eat their own.
No,
and so it's very tough.
But I think what you say that I have not considered before is the threatening feeling of what do you know that I don't? Or because I thought for a second it could just be like the low hanging fruit of, well, it's a scarcity mindset and there can only be one. But I think it goes deeper than that, which is that there is a subconscious distrust of why would I believe someone telling me something that I can tell myself and they're not allowed to tell me that, when of course the reality is so many young queer comedians are of course just trying to let our stories be told. But I mean, I could name a few people right now that there's even on like that cursed site Twitter, that there's people just like raking over the coals, and a lot of times it is like an attractive gay guy that they're just like, he's not even funny, fuck this guy. And I don't know, it's
really sad. But it also forces us to be better.
Yes.
Like, I think it just forces that's why like the really handsome gay comedians that I know are so exceptional. Like, that's why they're so good, because they have to fight against this idea of who they are compared to, you know, who they really are. So you have to continually break that down. And I think things are always changing, as also queer audiences are now much more mixed.
Yeah.
Than they used to be, which is wonderful too. It's like we're hanging out together way more than we used to. And I'm really grateful for that. You know, that's really an important part of us strengthening our community.
Yes.
But it is something like I've just noticed like how hard it is, but it doesn't take away from this idea of like, we're still able to see gay comedians be very successful.
Of course.
We're still able to see these guys really shine. And despite that, we're able to shine, which is really, really cool.
I'm glad you're saying that, because I many times have said it on this podcast that I like to, of course, lean into the positivity, into raising awareness and feeling validated by our queer experience and queer bliss. But I think it is sometimes important to sort of recognize what some of the difficulties or challenges we face within the community, while also saying we're still moving forward. And I think that, there is, of course, I am a gay guy that sometimes feels like my body isn't good enough compared to the muscle gays. But of course, I'm also knowing that I'm a part of a community that it doesn't actually matter. It's like two things can be true, is that we can confront some of the difficulties of the things that were placed upon us by the world growing up, whether it's we have to be exceptional or we have to look perfect or be perfect, while also knowing that we're human beings that are just like trying our fucking best. And I think we are going in a great direction.
Yeah, we're doing really well, and we're getting better all the time, and we're like educating ourselves and learning more about why we do these things. And I think that, in a sense, is really, really the best thing that we can do.
I completely agree. And I just have to, again, make sure you know that when I reached out to your team about doing the live show, and when you said yes, it was like I'll tell you where I was walking around the Silver Lake Reservoir, and I just like had a moment where I thought to myself, oh my God, this is I know you're so beautiful to be able to take my gushing, but like I just felt like my life is going in a really exciting direction because someone like Margaret Cho, who I've looked up to for so long, is doing something that I have worked on with the team. And I'm going to shout out Michael Schwartz, who also worked on the show, created the show with me, and he also is a huge fan. And just like to have this moment here with you on this podcast too, you have created such a safe place for us gay men specifically and queer people, and I'm just like, it's really surreal for me to be able to tell you that to your face.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honored, and I really enjoy your podcast, and I really love doing the live show with you, and this has been great. Well,
I just love to hear you say that. And before we officially have to sign off on this gay ass podcast, I'm going to ask you a final question, which is, sure, if we're saving Ann Dowd, thank goodness, but if we're talking about the butch queens who have maybe made us queer, what is keeping you queer today, Margaret Cho? Is it a porno, a sandwich, something else?
A sandwich. There's a really good sandwich up the street from me where they make it's roast beef and cream cheese and chopped olives. And it's very good. It's a sandwich. It's like I don't know how queer that is. I think it's Chapel's Roan's boundaries. I am so glad that Chapel Roan is setting those boundaries like a lesbian should. She is processing this moment.
Yeah, she's saying,
and I'm like,
calm down. I know I'm great, but can you let me eat my cream cheese beef sandwich, bitch? Please.
I know. I need them. I chopped these olives and I want them in my sandwich. I don't need you in my face asking me about it. Like, you know what? I love her boundaries. Like, I'm so grateful. Like, it just really, like, it makes sense.
Oh my God,
it makes
yes.
sense. I'm so happy for her.
And thank God we have this lesbian queen who can have, again, two things be true. One, her music is unbelievable. She is she is the medicine to any of our gay ailments, and she is allowed to not be accosted by cuckoo-luku people.
I love it. I love it. It makes me so happy. It makes me so gay. It makes me gayer.
Gayer. So Chapel Roan's making the world a gayer place. And to Chapel, we say, thank you. Margaret Cho, thank you for coming on That's a Gay Ass Podcast. Tell the girls where can they follow you, and let us know. Obviously, your amazing tour, Live and Livid, is still traveling the globe. Can you tell us where to find info on that?
People can find out where I'm touring at margaretcho.com. I'm also on Instagram at Margaret_Cho, and I'm on the TikTok at the Margaret Cho, also on Twitter or X at Margaret Cho.
Hell yes. Margaret, thank you again, and I'll see you on the next gay cruise.
Wonderful. See you then. Thank you.
Thank you. God, thank you so much, Margaret Cho. I am just gagged that she did this gay-ass fucking podcast, and I'm gagged that you listeners are so fucking gorgine. If you would like more gay-ass podcasts, the Patreon is horny and kicking. Last week's gay-ass sex episode, where I do gay sex diaries, is so horny, it's so hot, and you should not listen in public. You will be soaking wet. I'll see you next week for another episode of Gay-Ass Podcast, and please, y'all, stay gay.
You've been listening to That's a Gay-Ass Podcast, hosted by me, Eric Williams. If you want to see and hear more, make sure you subscribe to us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, or Patreon at Gay-Ass Podcast. That's a Gay-Ass Podcast is executive produced by Eric Williams and produced by Nathanael McClure. We'll see you next week.